Alright, this video is going to be a long one because we're going to talk about how we can actually increase our testosterone. And the reason why you actually are depressed, why you feel a lot of anxiety, is because you have low testosterone. So if you have felt that in social scenarios you have less confidence, meaning when you're talking, you almost have like a tight chest where you don't even know if you say something they'll listen or something will happen, and you just have low self-esteem, that's a sign of low testosterone. You being in public and being afraid of other men, if they're bigger than you or smaller than you, if they look at you menacingly and you think constantly about fights, if you constantly have negative, anxious thoughts about violent scenarios, that's also a sign of low testosterone. And so I've written a lot today about how we can increase our testosterone, but also avoid a few things that actually decrease testosterone. So what you need to understand about increasing your testosterone, increasing your mood and your overall drive is this. Testosterone, having higher levels of testosterone, decreases stress and anxiety. The amygdala, which is basically the part of your brain that is in charge of stress, anxiety, and creates this fear factor in your life, the fight or flight. Testosterone actually decreases your baseline for stress and anxiety, decreasing the baseline, or rather increasing the baseline so that you're more prone to being calm, like less prone to being stressful. And so it also increases your competitive spirit. And you could also argue that when you are competitive and you are in competitions, your testosterone increases, which is true. And what it also does is it allows you to increase novelty seeking, meaning your drive to do new things, your drive to want to explore and be this amazing, competent person. Because if you think about historic Vikings and great kings and explorers, you'd imagine they also had high testosterone because they're literally going into new lands. And this, by extension, so having high testosterone also increases the length and distance you're going to travel when you forage, meaning when you are doing these things, novelty seeking, perhaps they're already things that you're doing, like the gym, like some sort of habit that you're trying to stay consistent with, or your relationship, or whatever it is in your life, your purpose. You're going to do that for longer and you're going to go further when you have higher testosterone. And so here is this whole guide that I've created. This is going to be like 30 to 40 minutes long. And so the very first thing that I want you to think about is this. When you have a higher testosterone, everything will improve in your life. Like, it will probably get rid of your depression. And this is an overall blanket statement. Unless like your parents have died in a great car crash, I'm really sorry if that's the case. You're going to improve a lot more if you actually have high testosterone. And I'd argue even in this scenario, in this very horrible scenario, you'd actually increase your testosterone and you feel better as well. So to go and increase your testosterone and to return to your daily life changed, here are quite a few things that we can first do. But as we search for ways to increase our testosterone, what we found was that increasing your testosterone is like building your abs, and that we're doing a lot of things that are decreasing our testosterone to begin with. Because you'd imagine everyone has abs. It's simply a matter of getting rid of the fat in between to show the abs. It's almost like the same thing with testosterone, where if you start at 100%, you're not actually at your default state. You've done so many things, you've had so many bad habits, your external world has been so like estrogenic, it's been so threatening that everything's been decreasing your testosterone beneath the baseline that you should be at. So you may think that you're at 100%, but most likely this is going to be a far reach, and I'm going to explain to you exactly why this although sounds really like unrealistic, is true. It's going to be, you're going to probably be at 30% of where you're meant to be. Not a baseline, 30%. And so how I'm going to explain it is very simple, right? If 100% is your default state, but you have bad sleep, meaning it's inconsistent. So even 5 hours of poor sleep a week, like once, will just decrease your testosterone by 5 to 10%. And if you have consistent bad sleep, meaning there is no rhythm to your sleep, there's no consistency to your sleep, so one day you sleep for 10 hours, one day you sleep for 5, and it's inconsistent, not only are you destroying your circadian rhythm and your consistency to a biological level, meaning you're in a survival state, not allowing you to actually focus on thriving and creating, but you're also decreasing your testosterone by around 20%. In a week, it's roughly around 20%. So you've just gone from 100% to 80%. Now remember that consistently doing this, right, because this is just a short-term effect of bad sleep, but having consistent bad sleep, but having any bad habit consistently will not just decrease your testosterone temporarily, but it will also decrease the baseline of your testosterone. And so if you eat also a lot of junk food that's high in sugar, so you have cereal that's full of sugar, that's full of corn syrup, what's going to happen is now that testosterone from 80% is going to decrease by around 15 to 20% once more. So you're at about 65%. And then on top of that, if you drink a lot of alcohol, you go out to the pubs, nights out, not only is that going to destroy your sleep, and just like, you're not actually at home sleeping, you're at the club at 2 a.m., but drinking alcohol in and of itself is going to destroy the quality of your sleep. So not only are you destroying the quantity of what you're going to have, you're also destroying the quality. On top of that, you're destroying the rhythm and consistency you should have with your circadian rhythm. And on all of this, roughly, you're going to lose about 15 to 30% more testosterone. So you're losing a lot of testosterone by simply doing these bad habits. So right now, at a very generous level, you're at 45% of your baseline. And if you create high stress scenarios, and you're actually more prone to be more stressful and less calm in this scenario where you are at 45% of your baseline testosterone, you're actually going to decrease it even more by just normal stressful things like school deadlines, work deadlines, some sort of stressful scenario at home. You're going to decrease that even more from 10 to even 15%, leading to around 35% of your baseline. So at this point, what's most likely going to happen is, in the nicest way possible, you're going to have a limp dick. Not only is that the case, you're going to have low testosterone, meaning you're going to have very, very high anxiety, very, very high, you're going to be very prone to stress. You're going to be very prone to, as a result of stress and all these things, be in a very low frequency mood, leading to you doing more bad habits like eating bad foods, like relapsing, like being inconsistent with your habits, like losing drive and motivation, because when you have low testosterone, you're less likely to try new things. When you're less likely to try new things, you're constantly at home and you're just in a cesspool of bad habits, bad sleep, bad food, and just overall a bad life. And so no wonder you feel depressed. No wonder you feel you can't really do anything. It's because it's like running. So there's a metaphor for life, and it's every single man is running a marathon. And at the end of this marathon is the woman that you want, the dream life that you've always dreamed of, the physique that you want. But when you're running, what you're doing, when you're racing like this, when you're doing these bad habits, is like you're running on broken legs. And sure, you can add the necessary things to increase your testosterone. You can go to the gym, you can be healthy, or you can try to be. And sure, you can increase your testosterone in this way. But it's the equivalent of you running this race of life, of success and improvement, with broken legs. So you'll never actually be faster than the guy who doesn't have broken legs, that isn't running as fast or as hard or was trying as hard as you. So what we have to do is mend those legs first. We have to regain the baseline testosterone. That's what we have to do to begin with. It doesn't make sense not to. And so when we first remove the bad habits, meaning we create a baseline for you to actually succeed, meaning we've gone from 35% to 100%, leaving you at a good place. How we can do this is actually very simple. Have good sleep, eat well, exercise, and I'm going to talk about this right now. It's the basics. So the basics of increasing your testosterone mostly has to do with regaining your testosterone, regaining what you should have had. And some of these habits, if consistently done, will not only regain your testosterone, but also increase it. And so regardless, it's going to increase, but it's a question of how well you're going to decrease your bad habits. Will it increase from the baseline of 100% to 120, 130? And that's how you get people with 1,000 like 1,000 testosterone. If I don't know the exact anyway. And so the very first thing you have to think about is sleep. And it's cliche, but if you haven't consistently slept at the exact same time, meaning you've gone to bed at 9 p.m. on the dot, and you haven't woken up at the exact same time, meaning you've woken up at 5 a.m. every single day for the last week, if you haven't done either of these two things, then you have poor sleep. You have poor sleep. If you have less than 7.5 hours of sleep, you have poor sleep. What this is going to result temporarily, if within a week, is a 20% decrease in your testosterone. Do it long enough, and once again, it will lower the baseline so that you're at a lower threshold. It's like making the engine, the fuel tank, smaller and smaller and smaller, and the more consistently you do these bad habits, the less you have to work with, the less water you can put in the teacup. And so we have to create a bigger teacup first in order to put in as much water as possible. There is no point in having a small teacup and putting water in just for it to overflow or for the teacup to crack. Now, if we had an aquarium or an even bigger swimming pool, imagine the amount of water you can fit in there. And this water is your testosterone and the free testosterone that you can use to actually have a better life, not just with yourself, like holistically, but also with women, also with your parents, your friends, and also with your goals, with your physique, with the sports activities that you're doing. So the goals will actually succeed. And so when you have good sleep, and what I want you to understand by good sleep is consistency. And what consistency is not just consistent for a week, it's not just consistent for a year, it's about being consistent with this habit for the rest of your life. Meaning, can you do this for the rest of your life? And so if right now you have this idea that you're going to wake up at 3 a.m. every single day, can you do that for 10 years? If no, change the sleep time. If yes, go ahead. And so the very first thing I want you to do to increase your testosterone, that we can do to increase our testosterone, is to sleep and wake up at the exact same time every single day. Every single day. And so what happens as a result is not only are you going to increase your testosterone, but you're also regaining your testosterone. And so if we balance these two things out, most likely, let's say you've done everything else, you're not really doing any bad habits, or you're not moving backwards, you're going to be up to realistically 110% of your baseline. So you've improved your baseline testosterone by simply sleeping consistently. And what I want you to know is this: if you even have one night of bad sleep, like 5 hours, you've increased your chances of cancer, you've increased your chances of all of these brain diseases that you get at an old age, and like Parkinson's and arthritis, all of these things increase. Maybe not arthritis, that just happens with other things that are a result of bad sleep. But when you've just one night of bad sleep, you actually decrease your testosterone by around 24%. And so let's say you've now done this. You have a sleep schedule, meaning you've got a time you wake up and a time to sleep, and you stick to it. You are a person who sticks to that schedule, meaning when the time for you to actually come to sleep come to your bedroom and sleep comes, you go and sleep. Regardless, like irregardless of whether you're with your friends, you're with your parents watching a movie, you're maybe even working out in the gym or doing something else, make sure that you stop whatever you're doing. And about 30 minutes before you go to bed, you wind down and get ready to sleep. Because sleeping releases testosterone. Sleeping releases the growth hormones that you can actually use to create more muscle, lean mass, increase your overall mood and drive to succeed and be more disciplined and motivated. And so sleep is the most important thing. Because the moment you stop being in this survival mode, because that's exactly what happens when you have bad sleep, because you're signaling to your brain that your environment is unsafe because you don't have a safe place to sleep. Your brain can't distinguish between what is reality and what is experienced. So if you can do this and you can get out of survival, you can actually start creating and thriving. And so the second thing with the basics is exercise. Now, daily exercise is what is going to help, because daily exercise, about 30 minutes to an hour or maybe an hour and a half, actually increases your sleep quality, because you're creating a very good base for your body. And in just a few hours of exercising, your testosterone can increase anywhere between 15 to 30%. And if we have good sleep and it's 110%, right after going to the gym, you're going to have roughly, let's say 20% increase, 130% of what you normally have. And let's compare that to when you've been doing all these bad habits, like you've had poor sleep, done this, done that. You're already from 45% to 130%. You've probably tripled your testosterone just like that by simply avoiding these bad habits, like bad sleep, bad food, alcohol, and a few other things, obviously, like microplastics, but we're going to talk about that later for advanced topics, because we're doing the basics first, then the intermediate, then advanced. And so when you go to the gym and you do this, you're at 130% instantaneously. And the good thing about this is that just as how your baseline can decrease from consistent bad habits, it can increase from consistent good habits. So within the week, you're going to have a temporary increase of 15 to 30%. But within 1 to 3 months, that is actually going to increase your baseline testosterone so that the amount of testosterone and free testosterone you can use at any point, to 115, 130%, just like that. So the temporary becomes the more permanent. And keep in mind, if you stop going, that's gradually going to decrease. But if you do this, you're going to decrease fat, you're going to increase your lean muscle mass, you're going to look better, right? If you attract more girls and you talk to more girls, that's also going to increase your testosterone, which is like a really nice positive feedback loop. But on top of this, you're improving your sleep and mood. Remember that. And now, within just a week, temporarily, you've increased your testosterone from destroying yourself at 45% to 130%. You have more than tripled your testosterone. So imagine how you feel in this scenario. Probably amazing. And keep in mind that right now you're simply riding on the momentum of just starting. So this has to be consistent for it to be permanent. So this has to go on for just more than a week, not just a week or a month, but for a longer time for it to be permanent, where you've increased your baseline. And so the second thing you can do in terms of exercise is going and sprinting 1 to 3 times a week. Now, this is like the best thing you can do for muscle growth, because when you do this, you're actually increasing with proper rest, obviously. You don't want to go every single day because that just tires out your central nervous system, destroying your body basically. And when you do this like without any sort of rest, you're actually decreasing your testosterone, which isn't good. It's overtraining. Now, within just a week, you're going to temporarily increase your testosterone by 15 to 20%. So you've gone from 130 to, let's say, 15 to 145% increase in your testosterone. Now, when you've done all of this, keep in mind during this period, not like it doesn't sound like a lot, but what is really important is that when you sprint, even once a week, you've increased your growth hormones, what allows you to grow taller, grow more muscular, increase your bone density. Your growth hormone increases by 200% to 400%. So 4 times the baseline amount of growth hormones you'd get just by sprinting once, twice, or 3 times a week. And now when you do all of this, not only are you increasing your muscle growth, but you're going to feel a lot better as well. So this is probably one of the best things you can do for your physique while you're going to the gym. Now, third thing you can do for exercise is diet. Now, you can basically say this is actually more of a basic thing, meaning sleep, exercise, and diet, 3 things, and not like a subcategory of exercise. But every single day, if you eat around 8 to 12 eggs and also have like 1 to 2 avocados, you're gonna have a very good increase in your testosterone and baseline testosterone, which I would say like 15 to 20%. Now, eggs have cholesterol, which is crucial for actually processing and creating testosterone within your body. So, like increasing the sex steroid hormone, that's what it's called. Now, the 3 to 6 egg studies have shown have to increase your testosterone temporarily by 5 to even 15%. Now, you do that consistently and you add even more, because I used to have about 3 to 6 eggs and it didn't really make a big difference, but you'll feel a major difference in your mood if you have 8 to 12 eggs. And for the average person, for the normal person who isn't fat, 8 to 12 eggs is actually going to help you improve. So avocados are high in magnesium, vitamin E, potassium, and all of these things are going to help with lowering cortisol, and it's going to help with hormone balance. Sorry, I'm reading this and I'm trying to explain it to you as well, because I've written a lot of things down. And so when you have avocados, I have avocados because not only is this a great nutritionally, but it also has a lot of calories. So 2 avocados, it's actually equivalent to about 8 large eggs in calories. Think about that. And so 2 large or like just normal medium-sized avocados is 500 calories, and it has a lot of fat. And so high fat, high cholesterol, these 2 things are actually good for testosterone. It increases testosterone. And the intermediate, now going from beginner to intermediate, just by doing the basics, you've actually temporarily, at the very least, increased your testosterone, not just from baseline 100%, but to 160%. Now compare that to where you were at previously, which is 45%, and you've basically almost increased your testosterone by 4 times the amount. Now, intermediate would be avoiding microplastics. So these are receipts, things like plastic water bottles, and polyester underwear. Now I'm going to explain to you what each of them mean. And basically, you're going to have like an average of 10 to 30% regain in your testosterone. So I said before 45%, but that was actually me being nice. You should be a lot lower with all of these estrogenics around you. So estrogenics is anything that almost serves hormonally, if you interact with it, as estrogen within your body. So it just like increases estrogen, meaning you're going to have a bad hormone imbalance. You don't want estrogen. Obviously estrogen is important. You have to have a balance. It's not just like an extremely bad thing, but when you have high levels of estrogen, that's how you get things like, man boobs, where people have like horrible like lymph nodes. I don't know what it is, but people have those man boobs and they have just bad mood overall. It's a result of hormone imbalance and high estrogen and also lower testosterone. So this helps with number 1, receipts, thermal paper. So thermal paper is what receipts are made out of. But that's not the thing that actually destroys your testosterone. It's the BPA or BPS, like its distant cousin, blah, 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 that actually destroys your testosterone. So chemicals that act like estrogen within your body, that's what it is. So just a few seconds of contact can transfer measurable BPA through your skin. And it's especially bad if your hands are sweaty or you've used hand sanitizer. Now, if you use hand sanitizer, what happens is that the effects of testosterone, or rather, it's going to drop firstly, but the effects of these estrogenic BPA is going to increase by, I literally remember it was something crazy, like 1,000 times, not percent, times. So you might have to fact check this one, but I literally remember hearing this and reading about this, 1,000 times worse if you simply use hand sanitizer because you're absorbing it. Now, regular handling of receipts can actually decrease it. It was like linked to decreasing your testosterone by 10 to 30%, like your free testosterone that you can use. And what you can do to actually stop this is to say no to receipts and to just ask for a digital copy or to just not have a receipt. In Australia, you don't actually need one. Maybe in America, you do. Get a digital receipt or take a photo. And when you do this, you're actually avoiding a lot of estrogenic material. Now, the second thing is I'm just trying to make a point on microplastics and how it's really bad for you, like plastic water bottles. Most single-use water bottles, most of them have a dangerous amount of BPA and BPS, which leach into the water more when the bottles are heated. So a lot of the times you don't know where these bottles have been stored. You don't know if it's in a very hot warehouse and how much actual microplastics are in there. But when your water bottle gets hot, like in a car, or you leave it out, it's going to have a dangerous amount of microplastics. And once again, this BPA exposure long term is going to impair not just your testosterone by a good percentage, like 10 to 20%, but also your sperm quality. So BPA and BPS, these estrogenic chemicals, have been seen to literally mutate your sperm. So your babies, your potential babies, are literally mutated. So just, you know what a bit like a sperm cell looks like? It will literally have two heads, or its tail is going to be extremely crooked. And what will that mean for the baby itself? Pretty bad things. Now, a lot of people say that as you get older, as a woman, you actually have like babies that have more, things wrong with them. But the thing is, it's actually the man's sperm quality that affects the quality of the baby. The women simply has to do with quantity. So how likely they will be to be fertile. So obviously it's important to think about this, because this means that men have an inherent responsibility as a person who wants to have a family, as a father, to be healthy, to avoid microplastics, because it'll affect the future of their child. So it's not the mother, it's the father. So this is up to you. Now, the mother has more risks to do with herself than anything else. So rather it's the carrying of the baby, perhaps the actual labor itself, that would become more at risk when they're older. But it's mostly the man. Now the third thing is just polyester underwear. So synthetic materials overall, even for your clothes, like polyester, nylon, spandex, can release microplastics and chemical residues. So these have been shown on animal studies to have testicular toxicity from chronic skin contact. So if you are chronically using these things, like, this is a nicer way of talking about it, right? Instead of saying, oh, if you use like bad materials for your shirts, and instead I say, if you chronically use these like testicularly toxic materials on your body, that sounds a lot more severe. That actually makes you want to avoid these things, don't you? Because it is exactly what I'm talking about. Your sperm count and your testosterone drop 20 to 40% over time. So not just your testosterone, but your sperm count decreases. Now, what I want you to know is that also when you have really tight underwears, like tidy whities or other underwears that really hug your under area, that is also going to decrease your testosterone. You have to let them hang. This is a real thing. You can look it up. If you don't trust me, you can look it up. It will decrease your testosterone. And your sperm count. Sperm count is the most important thing. So as you grow older, there's such a big vendetta on women and, oh, she's gonna run out, she's gonna be expired. But men also have to have that same standard, because if you are doing bad habits, if you are constantly drinking alcohol, having bad sleep, eating bad food, not exercising, and on top of all of this, you wear testicularly toxic material on your body that chronically seeps into your skin, your sperm count is lower. Not only is it lower, meaning the quantity is lower, so you're infertile basically, you're docile, but also the quality of the sperm decreases. So this is an issue that the man must fix no matter what if they want to be a father. And so it's partly from heat retention, but also to do with the overall amount of chemicals that you're absorbing through it, the plastics that you're absorbing through it. And now you have to know that the testes have to be a little bit cooler. You have to like let it cool. It's important. That's why I'm saying let it hang, let the air go through. This sounds a bit weird. But organic cotton, bamboo, or even merino wool underwear, breathable, natural, and non-endocrine disrupting. So endocrine is the hormonal gland that basically is in charge of these things, will help you a lot more. So if you avoid some of these things, this is just to do with microplastics, you can regain 10 to even 40% of your testosterone, but also sperm count and sperm quality. So this has to do with if you want to be a father in the future, please start now. Because here is the thing. If you think right now that you're young and it's okay, you're going to affect your future self in a way that is immeasurable. Because consistently doing this, not only is it just like a temporary thing, it becomes more permanent. And you've decreased your baseline of sperm count, sperm quality, and also your testosterone baseline when you do these things. Now, another intermediate thing that you can do is drinking water. About 3 to 4 liters and 400 milliliters per hour is like how much you can possibly consume without it negatively affecting you. This is just a safe precaution. Now, the amount that you should have is around 35 to 40 milliliters of water per kilogram of your body weight. So if you're 75 kilograms or 165 pound male, then you're going to have around 2.6 to 3.4 liters daily. And if you're a smaller woman, then you do your maths, 35 to 45 times the kilogram, you'll see how much water that you really need at a healthy amount. Now, the estimated amount of 3 to 4 liters is a bit more than usual, but it's for the active person. Because when you're active, you're burning more, you're going to become more dehydrated and you need more water. Now, consistently drinking 3 to 4 liters is ideal for most active men. It won't directly add around 30% to your testosterone, but it removes a silent 10 to 20% decrease, a drag that comes from dehydration and cortisol imbalance. So this happens as a result of dehydration. When you're dehydrated, about 80% of people are genuinely dehydrated most of the time. You're actually already at a deficit. You're already controlling how much testosterone you're going to have by not having water. And it's in a negative way. It's down regulating. So the more you do this, the worse you're going to get at it. Now, when you have more water and you stay hydrated, how you do this is to have a metal or glass water bottle or a BPA-free plastic water bottle. But even then, a lot of the times companies say that they are BPA-free, bisphenol A-free, but they simply change it up with bisphenol S, which is less known but just as bad as BPA. It's estrogenic and in its chemical compound can destroy your sperm count and quality as well as your testosterone. Now, a 2011 study in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found athletes with mild dehydration had 15 to 20% lower testosterone and higher cortisol to testosterone ratio after exercise. So if you're not regularly hydrating, even during exercise, you're at risk of decreasing your testosterone. So there are so many things around us that can decrease our testosterone that we have to be aware of, that will be a big reason to why we have low testosterone. So rehydration restored these levels, this decrease in 10 to 20% in 24 hours. So you can basically get back to your baseline of 100% at a very fast pace if you simply remove a lot of these bad habits. So what have I said so far? I've said in order to regain your testosterone, your baseline level, because you're not even at a 45%, you're probably like realistically at a 20% of where you actually should be. You're going to have to do a few things. Number one is to like avoid these things, right? Bad sleep. Now you're going to go from 25% to 35 to 40%. Bad food, 45 to 50, 55%. On top of that, you avoid alcohol. Now that 45 to 55% goes up to 65%. Now, on top of all of this, you avoid microplastics, and that's an extra 20%. That's like 80. Now, on top of all of this, you also avoid a few other things like, let's think. I'm just going to go through the notes very quickly. That's right. On top of this, right, when you're at 80%, the stressful scenarios are less likely to be as stressful, allowing you to come back to your baseline. So these are just a few of the things you can do. There are so many ways. And there are so many things that destroy your testosterone. Now, how we can do this, now how we can improve it even more, these are less potent because I've just told you the 80-20 rule. So the things that you're doing, this is the 20% that will lead to 80% of the result. This is it. This is exactly what you need to increase your testosterone to a really good level. Now, if you want to go further than that, if you want to go just more than just the average person, more than just the average healthy person, meaning you're hydrated, you exercise, you sleep well, on top of all of this, you also sprint, you're at actually very high level. You're at a very high level. Now, the 20% that we can increase through 80% of effort is, I would say, the more philosophical, spiritual side of it. And that is the advanced. And number one is meditation and gratitude practices. Now, the mechanism is very simple. How your brain works is it's the most powerful and most happy in the present moment. And what a lot of people do is they go into the past and they live and experience that moment. And so your brain cannot distinguish between what is imagined, the memories imagined within your brain, the feelings that you feel from the memories. And it can't distinguish between that and reality as we know it as right now. And so you are vicariously and very much realistically living in the past. Now, this just has to do with masculinity and testosterone overall, because the only time you can actually be happy, the only time you can actually get things done is in the present. And if you're constantly living in the past, there's no time for the present, and it actually seeps into the future as well. And the problem also when you live in the past is because you become increasingly hyperactive, meaning when you're constantly living in the past and you're feeling these negative emotions, the prefrontal cortex actually increases cortisol, increases all of these things that are really bad for you. So you are at a very bad level of... Now, what I want you to understand is very simple. I don't have to explain this too much, but you want to stop living the past. Because when you live in the past and you're extremely prone to stress also, and stressful scenarios in the future begin to occur, you draw from the experiences from the past to deal with the stressful scenarios, so you're never actually in the present. Now, why this is so important is because it is the only time you can actually create action. Now, the mechanism is this. Meditation and gratitude journaling grounds you in the moment, allowing you to be more happy, lowering actual cortisol, lowering stress, balancing your dopamine and serotonin. Now, dopamine is so important because it's your driving mechanism for motivation, and it also improves sleep quality because you're in the moment, you have a lower heartbeat, your brain waves are actually slower, allowing you to be more at peace. Meditation and gratitude journaling lowers your cortisol by 20 to 30% on average. It's in studies. This directly raises your testosterone by 10 to 20% over time, mostly by removing suppression rather than adding. Now, the bonus is gratitude and mindfulness increases baseline dopamine tone, improving motivation, your libido, and your mood. Now, what I mean by this is very simple, right? Your brain, there's a certain part of it that is in charge of discipline, that grows smaller or bigger as you do things that are hard. Now, when you're in the moment, when you're actually in the moment, you can make better decisions because you're more aware of where your attention is going. And so you're more likely to do the harder things. Now, when you're more likely to do the harder things and you're more likely to actually be in the moment where you are capable of action, you've gotten rid of a lot of the mental side of things. You're no longer worrying about the past. You're no longer a victim of the past and the past you. And you're no longer worrying about the future. And when you're in this moment, what actually happens is that oxytocin, the love chemical, which makes you feel amazing, increases by 2 to 4 times the standard deviation of what is considered normal. Now, not only do you have a baseline increase in your dopamine, which means, by the way, an increase in your motivation and drive, but you also just feel happier. That's why people say that they are high on life. It's because they're in the moment. And you'll realize later on that this actually has a lot to do with relationships. And women find it extremely attractive when men are constantly in the moment. So when you have conversations on a date with women, the best kind of conversation is one on the moment. Not one where you're talking about the future, where, I'm going to do this, and you may think that it's attractive to show these qualities, but it actually shows low self-esteem to the woman because you're trying to basically qualify yourself. You're self-qualifying. You're trying to appeal to the woman, saying, look at me, I do all these things. Or when you talk about the past, like, I've done this, this, and this. And obviously it's important to get to know the person if you want to have a long-term relationship. But most of the time, most of these interactions should be consistently in the present. So almost like a 3-year-old child, you just look around, you're constantly in the moment, you're talking to her, and you're just in that moment, in that specific moment, to the point where you appreciate the trees, to the point where it's almost weird, like you're almost high. That's what it's supposed to be, and women find that much more attractive than you constantly talking. So the less you talk, the more you're in the present, the more it's actually going to help with a woman, but also more it's going to help with your overall peace. So to be at peace means to be more masculine. The masculine frame revolves around peace, revolves around action, and action is only in the moment. Now, no longer are you worrying about anything, no longer are you worrying about the future or the past, and you're at a very good place. Now, the practical approach to meditation and mindful gratitude is to think about this. 10 to 15 minutes is a good amount for meditation, but it's actually been shown, studies have shown, that even 3 minutes of meditation can change your brain at a neurological level, because neurons that fire together wire together. And so the more you do this, the more it's going to be easier, and the more you're actually going to elevate yourself from high anxiety to a much more peaceful, calm state. Because when you're doing things that calm you, you're going to do more things that calm you, because neurons that fire together wire together. When you're in a calm state, you're more likely to do the good habits, you're more likely to be happy, you're more likely to sleep at the right time. When you're stressed and high anxiety, you're more likely to do the bad habits. So by simply starting this, you've created a very good basis for your neurobiological health. Now, second thing is NoFap. It's the abstinence from excessive pornography or ejaculation. Now, the mechanism is very simple. Dopamine receptor is very important. The dopamine receptor is numbed when you actually watch a lot of this high intensity porn. Now, what you have to understand is that when you do this, not only is your overall perception of sex better, but you treat women better as well. And here is one thing that I want you to understand, that it's not masculine to fall into lust. And if you want to be masculine, if you want to be a man, the best thing you can do is to actually avoid lust, to avoid these things, because it's a sign of emotional weakness. Emotional weakness means, to a woman, first of all, death. To her, it means death, very simply, because you are the one thing that she relies on for survival. Now, not only is this really good for like external means, but if you look within, you're just more at peace and you actually have a lot of self-love. Within the Orthodox Church, they actually call it self-abuse, because that's exactly what it is. Because the moment you finish, you don't watch the rest of the video, do you? You almost feel a bit of guilt, like, what am I watching? That is the thing, right? That you have a lower perception of yourself when you do these things. And if you want higher confidence, if you want to be more at peace, you have to have more confidence. That's what you do. Now, short abstinence, if you look at it from a more practical standpoint, has a temporary testosterone boost of up to 45%. It's not permanent. Now, longer streaks of 2 to 4 weeks have shown to basically have a baseline stabilization of not only your dopamine but also your testosterone, better mood, energy, and drive. So indirect benefits include focus and overall mindfulness. Now, excessive porn and masturbation is linked to actually blunted dopamine receptors and mild reductions in testosterone and sexual motivation. Now, this is just to do with like the actual indicators found in studies, but philosophically you can see if you do the thing that is the pinnacle of your purpose, which is to procreate, to have a family, then you really don't have motivation to do anything else. So that's why you've heard of the term empty balls, empty stomach, or like full empty stomach, full balls, and that's supposed to be almost the pinnacle of drive, in the sense that you're hungry for more. And so realistically, long-term testosterone benefits would be around 10 to 20% on a higher baseline. So goal would be to never release. But moderation is okay, I suppose. But at the end of the day, avoid lust at all times. It is one of the only sins that they say not to fight. So fighting it isn't going to work. Logical explanations isn't going to work. Excuses won't work. The only thing that will work is to flee. To literally flee from the exact scenario that makes you relapse. So if you know at 9 p.m. when you go on your phone and your laptop, you're more likely to relapse after a long day of hard work, then go for a walk and don't use your laptop. And that will get rid of the environment. So you can't actually fight it with free will. This is one of the only things that you can't really fight with free will and willpower, because it's very, very hard. And the desire to do it is a lot more than any sort of willpower or discipline you'll ever have. And so fleeing is the most important thing. Flee from the environment, flee from the scenario, and always remember that lust and coming to lust is a sign of emotional weakness, and it's affecting your masculinity in a negative way, not just for yourself and your overall self-confidence, but for women around you and your parents, your relationships. And remember, this is the only way you can look at someone in the eye and have a bliss feeling of peace. Now, the third thing would be talking to women. It's just a healthy social connection. Now, the mechanism is very simple. It's social dominance. Not only will you increase your dopamine and oxytocin, but as a result, you're going to have a small tweak in testosterone. Just flirting or socializing with attractive women within minutes will increase your testosterone from 10 to 30%. This has actually been seen in multiple lab studies. Now, regular positive social interaction maintains higher average testosterone than isolation or rejection cycles. So this means that number one, you shouldn't do things like monk mode. You shouldn't isolate yourself. You shouldn't think that I'm just going to go to the gym and self-improve and I'll disappear and come back. You should have healthy amounts of social interactions. And from these interactions, here's the tip, and here's what I found very useful, is to not want anything, to not want a relationship, and to, when you have inner peace and you simply come to women from a place of abundance and you want to just talk. You don't have to do pickup lines. You just say, hey, I like that. Hey, this, and this. And you have just a platonic relationship. You're going to have a much better net positive than you trying to pick up girls, because that has the possibility of rejection. As a result of rejection, there's a negative feedback loop resulting in poorer posture, making you feel like a loser, more like less valued as a person, and thus a lower testosterone. So you want to avoid risk by simply never trying to begin with. And what you'll understand is that's actually within your masculine frame, because when you are not chasing, when you aren't going into these scenarios, because imagine your dad, can you really imagine your dad doing what you think you should do? Probably not. You probably shouldn't be trying to pick up girls. That's probably not something that's masculine to an extent. Now, in this society, pickups can be seen as a form of social dominance, but I think if you go higher than that, and you go a bit higher than that, and you see it from a perspective of, okay, you don't actually need that relationship. You don't actually need that female intimate part in any sort of way, and you're okay with being alone. That's actually a very good form of masculinity and peace, and form of high testosterone, I would say. And when you're at peace and you come to these scenarios at peace and you ask for nothing and you say basically nothing because you're in the moment and you're enjoying it, you're going to increase your testosterone and you're going to have a better social interaction. Now, not only will this increase your confidence, you're going to be laughing, you're going to possibly have a bit of like playful touch. This will reduce cortisol and improving this androgen receptor sensitivity. So that has to do with increasing your testosterone, the overall ability for you to create testosterone. Now, the practicality of this would be to stay socially active. Do not do monk mode. Maintain genuine relationships. It can be platonic. You can be friends with women in the sense that you just don't want a relationship. You have to remember that the moment you want something, you lack it in life, and therefore you've created a distance between you and that goal. In order to actually become that person, to more likely to get that thing, you simply have to believe that you can already have it, or you already have it. And it's simple as that. Now, the fourth thing is faith and spiritual practice. Now, this just reduces anxiety and stress overall, but it creates a stronger sense of meaning and purpose, which is extremely important for not only decreasing cortisol, but also increasing your masculine intention, your purpose. Now, studies in religious and spiritually engaged men show 10 to 15% higher testosterone on average. Now, this is just those reporting chronic existential stress or anxiety or isolation. Oh, sorry, that just destroyed my laptop, just ran out of battery. Now, what I mean by this, I read something wrong there. So, men with a religious faith have been found to have 10 to 15% higher testosterone, but also are less likely to, just what I've just explained there, to be socially inept, etc., to have low confidence testosterone overall. Now, these are all of the things that I would say is very important in increasing your testosterone, regaining your testosterone, not only your testosterone, but overall masculine frame and philosophy of life. Now, I really hope that you found this useful. If any of you have stuck to the very end, thank you very much. I hope that this video is valuable, and I'll see you guys next time. Comment if you found it enjoyable. It actually helps me a lot as well. See you guys next time.